opportunities to quality education and healthcare, enabling them to live with dignity and pride. Our mission is to promote understanding and tolerance in society by empowering youth with the values of volunteering and philanthropy. By doing this, the youth will learn necessary skills such as planning, developing, and implementing projects to build bridges between difficult communities. VT Seva does this by executing projects and events that all fall under 4 pillars. These 4 pillars are education, healthcare, environmental protection, and disaster relief. We have established Netra Vidyala schools for the blind and visually challenged students and tribal Jir Gurukulam schools for underprivileged tribal communities in India. We have also established various cancer screening camps to help women of impoverished communities detect breast and cervical cancer early. VT Seva is a huge organization that has had a massive impact over many communities in the world. It is an organization that we are very proud to be a part of, and we can't thank you enough for deciding to join us. I have been a part of VT Seva from a very young age and participated in fundraisers for natural disaster aid and raising money for the visually challenged through things like garage sales, car washes, and even lemonade stands. As I grew older, I was able to get immersed into the world of volunteering with VT Seva and participated with our partnering organizations such as Miracle League, Feeding America, and Meals on Wheels. I also was fortunate enough to participate in an eye-opening experience with VT Seva and traveled to the rural parts of India and was able to have the opportunity to teach tribal kids English while also spending time with our visually challenged students studying in our schools, which was truly life-changing. With all of these experiences, I was inspired to be a part of the first youth board of the Cary chapter as a co-president of the board. Now, pivoting our focus towards more of the topic of today, and a little bit more about me. I just graduated college with dual degrees, one of them being a Bachelor of Science in Psychology. So the topic we're covering today is very near and dear to my heart. Through my course knowledge, I have learned how high-quality sleep is crucial for optimal human functioning, as it plays a vital role in cognitive performance, emotion regulation, and physical health. Research consistently shows that adequate sleep enhances memory consolidation and learning processes, contributing to better academic and occupational performance. Sleep is essential for the restoration and repair of tissues and organs, promoting immune function and overall well-being. I have had the first-hand experience to see how sleep affects me as I went through my years in college. I could tell how my body wasn't at its optimal functioning if I had been up all night cramming for an exam in comparison to getting a good 8 hours of high-quality sleep. Today, we are so excited and fortunate to have Dr. Amita Ravalapati join us for our webinar. She's an esteemed internist with over 16 years of dedicated practice. Dr. Ravalapati received her medical training from Manipal Academy of Higher Education and completed her master's in public health at Northern Illinois University. She further honed her skills through an internal medicine residency at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. Currently, she serves as a valued member of the teaching faculty at UNC Chapel Hill, where she mentors 3rd and 4th year medical students, imparting her wealth of clinical expertise and passion for healthcare. We will be having an amazing 30-minute presentation followed by a 15-minute Q&A. I would like to now pass it on to Dr. Amita.
Thank you, Shreya, for this introduction, and thank you for your role in VT Seva. It really speaks volumes about your personality, character, and that's just like providing motivation to other teens and children. So that's amazing. And thank you all for being here today. And as I said, I hope we didn't wake you up from your sleep and disturb you. But then I'm glad you're all part of this webinar today. And let's dive into sleep is your superpower. What is superpower? It's everybody has their own superpowers. Like, so we will focus on how sleep will help with achieving that, your individual superpowers. So, next slide. So just for fun, I just wanted to bring some tidbits that I learned, like, as a part of this presentation, even I learned some fun facts. So just knowing myself, I can't go without sleep for even a day or after but then I've learned that the longest, I don't know why they wanted to get into the Guinness Book of World Records without sleeping, but they did by not going to sleep for like 11 days and 25 minutes. And that person was asked, would you want to try to beat your own record? That person never wanted to because of how crammy, how bad, and how lethargic they felt after that. And then I just learned that elephants are the one animal that they sleep less than any other animals in this planet, which is apparently they sleep 3 to 4 hours every third or fourth day. And then comes to tigers and infants. They sleep the same amount, which is about 16 to 18 hours. And I'm sure moms know how it is to wake up a sleeping infant. At the same time, that's why they say never wake up a sleeping tiger. So, because they need that rest. And also, we all complain about these daylight savings, which can be a killer. And we've noted that the highest number of heart attacks happen when we lose that hour of sleep, just showing how important it is that even that extra hour or two of sleep can be for your body. So the other thing I've noted that like most of us, when we hit the bed, we fall asleep within 10 minutes. And if you notice yourself taking 20, 30 minutes, then there is something you would want to do about it. Maybe a supplement as simple as melatonin or talk to your physician about it. Next slide. And few other things. Humans are the only mammals that willingly try to delay sleep. We don't tend to listen to our body because we think we can control how much we should sleep. And few other words that I've just learned as a part of this fun facts about sleep is somniphobia, the fear of falling asleep. A lot of us think that, oh my God, if I fall asleep, I'm going to miss out on something. So we try to resist that. Onerophobia. I'm sure some of us have nightmares. That's a part of our subconscious thinking. But just because of that, we think like we should try to resist sleeping. And clinomania is the irresistible urge to stay cozy in bed all day. I'm sure teenagers could relate to this. Or I'm sure some of us adults too. But these are a few things that I've come across just learning about, like just trying to present this webinar today. So, next slide. So, we've been talking so much about sleep now. So, but what is sleep? So it's something that comes naturally to us. It's easily reversible, which means, like I'm sure you can be woken up from sleep. It's not something, we're not in coma, but it can be easily reversed with few disturbances that happen around us. And it's a periodic state of many living things that is marked by the absence of wakefulness, by the loss of consciousness of one's surroundings. So let's focus on each thing here. When I say periodic state, I'll explain to you in my upcoming slides why I say it's a periodic, it keeps recurring. And then it's the marked absence of wakefulness, which we all are aware, like, when we are sleeping, we are not aware of our surroundings. And the loss of consciousness to one's surroundings, which is what we need. It's not a want, it's a need. You should be like unaware of your surroundings because your body needs that rest. So your body is built naturally to sleep. So fighting that is what leads to a lot of issues that we are going to discuss. And it's a active state of unconsciousness, which is what I'm going to describe in my next slide is it's an active state of unconsciousness produced by the body where the brain is in a relative state of rest and is reacting primarily to internal stimuli, which means it is listening to the internal stimuli and actively getting you into a state where you want to rest. It's almost akin to your car, right? Let me compare ourselves to a car. You pour gas in every day. Like after a couple days, you look at the indicator or you know when to fill gas, you have to stop. Can you keep going without that gas? No. But that's something you physically see. Coming to sleep, we don't see it visually. And when you're not visually seeing it or paying attention to your body, you overcome that stimuli that your body is giving you, that internal stimulus. Yes, you need to rest. We have to take that moment to listen to our body. Yes, we need that rest. And you can listen to your body's internal stimuli only when you're really paying attention. Because we pay attention to a lot of things. Oh, we need to clean the house. We need to do this. We need to do that. Because you're physically seeing, visually seeing all of this. But this is something that's happening internally. So, where you need to give a moment to your body and listen. Next slide. So in the 1950s, like at that time, people believed this was like a passive activity, like, it would happen not like, without any of us, like without us getting involved. Yes, you need a place to rest and sleep. So they thought you could be just walking, talking, and you'll just fall asleep. This was in the 1950s, during which they at that time they thought that the body and the brain were dormant. But years of research has shown that it turns out that sleep is a period during which actually the brain is engaged in a lot of activities and they are necessary to our life, which are closely linked with the quality of life. It's just as simple as we cook every day and eat, if not, we don't get energy. But we don't give that same importance to sleep because we think sleeping is something we can get away with. But during that time, there's a lot of activities happening to our own body. So it's technically an active state of unconsciousness that engages in a lot of activities. Next slide, please. So, what sleep has its own cycles, and what are they? I'm sure most of you have heard about REM, non-REM, and this is a very common terminology that we all use. Most of it, what I'm telling you today, is not something you haven't heard. It's just bringing together the knowledge that's like somewhere in part of your brain and applying it to what's needed to us. So, what are the stages of sleep? The first part of the cycle is non REM. REM means rapid eye movement sleep, which is composed of four stages. And what is that? The first stage, it comes when awake to falling asleep. It's that 10 minutes that I was talking about. For the most part, it takes under 10 minutes to get there, first stage. The second is the light sleep, when now your heart rate and breathing are regulated and body temperature drops. So it's almost like cooling your engine, which you all know is important. Can you leave a gas on for 24 hours of the day? There's something going to happen in the house. So it's that heat that's generated entire day when you're awake. Now you need to cool that down. The third and the fourth stage are where you go into deep sleep. From there is the next slide, please. There you cycle into REM sleep, which is the rapid eye movement sleep. where the brain waves are almost similar to when you're awake, but that's where you're dreaming about everything subconsciously you were probably thinking or thinking of doing, something that you've had a conversation about, or some of your fears come true. That's like nightmares. So, but at that time, your breath rate increases because technically, when you're awake, your breathing rate, your heart rate is higher. And but then the body is like, even the body is like temporarily paralyzed. But at that time, when I mean paralyzed, it's almost you're just weak, lying down. The muscles are relaxed. And then this whole cycle of non-REM and REM cycle throughout the night. And you kind of go back and forth at least like about 3 to 4 times through these cycles, which you see are all important. Everything is important to your body. Your heart rate needs to cool down, your temperature needs to cool down, your body needs to, your muscles need to relax. And that's not something you can do when you're awake. Because technically, as much as you think you can control your body, it's your brain, that the parts of the brain that are really controlling everything that's happening to your body. And if you see, that's the most precious part. That's why you have a hard skull protecting it. So, next slide, please. So now that we have learned that, yes, what is sleep? What are the cycles of sleep? How important, I mean, we'll learn more about how important it is. But do genetics play a role in sleeping? Yes. Just like everything in our body is controlled by genetics, the way we look, the way our hair is, what we do, what our body built is. Same thing, even our genetics control our circadian rhythm too. So we have something called morning chronotypes, which is they are called larks, where these people they show a marked preference for waking up early, and they have a hard time staying up past their bedtime. Evening chronotypes are owls who have difficulty getting up early in the morning and they prefer staying up late at night. And again, this is an indication that we have to listen to the internal stimuli. How does your body respond when you don't go to bed early? Or how does your body respond when you wake up too early? So, next slide. So, there's a lot on this slide, but bottom line, what it's talking about is your circadian rhythm. Our body is built very intelligently. So we all have this nucleus in our brain that reacts to the amount of light entering. That's why basically we are tuned to sleeping at night, waking up in the morning, and with that, the nucleus, it sends out like the neural signals that regulates our body temperature. And when it is getting closer to us falling asleep, the body temperature starts to drop. That's when we become more like tired or fatigued. And that's how individual bodies respond. And it's the circadian rhythm of our body temperature that determines whether we behave as a lark or an owl. So early risers, generally their temperatures peak in the morning and then plateau and slowly starts to decrease. And for the larks, it's at the later time of the day, and that's why they kind of are not sleepy until 10 or 11 at night. And we'll discuss about those timings in our future slides. Next slide. So now that we know, for the most part, now we understand what sleep is like, what the sleep cycles are. There are some disorders. I won't go into too much of a detail of to what all these disorders are, but just for our understanding, at least to recognize this. And the other thing is, we go to a physician for multiple things, but sleep is the last thing. It's almost called in our medical field, we call it like a door handle kind of diagnosis, because they talk about every issue. Usually, when patients come in, they talk about blood pressure, diabetes, or something else. They're physically feeling stomachache. And after the appointment, as they are walking out, doctor, we aren't sleeping well. But it sounds like a simple sentence, but there's a lot to it, like a lot more to discuss behind it, why the person is not sleeping well. Because it could be a circadian rhythm sleep disorder, because where it is, some patients who are lark, they try to they have to sleep by 8 or 9 p.m., but they push their sleep timing to their like maybe an hour or two behind, and that causes them to keep losing 2 hours of sleep each day, which catches up after a couple weeks. And that's when we recognize, okay, our blood pressure is not under control, or we are more fatigued and lethargic, or we are driving like you're very sleepy during driving. Or insomnia is another very common sleep disorder, but insomnia could have a lot of causes, which could be stress, anxiety, or something else that's going on their medical front. So that's something to discuss. OSA means obstructive sleep apnea, which I'm sure most of you have heard about it. But the thing, what causes this is obesity or overweight, which back in the day we would say, hey, they snore. We would make like, it's like, oh, they are snoring quite a bit. But the snoring is happening because when we are lying down, the way our back of the throat muscles, they relax, and that is almost like they're collapsing, which causes like lack of oxygen to the brain, and you're waking up. So technically you're waking up so many times during the night that what happens is during the day you're lethargic or falling asleep because your brain hasn't gotten enough oxygen. And pretty much it's almost creating a medium to develop things like stroke and other things like heart attack, because technically your body is not getting enough oxygen. So that's something definitely needs to be corrected. And then narcolepsy. That's another medical condition which you lack control when you're falling asleep because of a lack of a chemical. It's a kind of a immune system disorder, and because your body is depleted of that particular chemical. So you might, if you notice anything like you have no control, you're falling asleep at the wheel, you're falling asleep during the day, you might want to see a physician. And restless leg syndrome, this is another huge field, but if you notice at night, like you're constantly kicking and moving your legs, it could be from something as simple as anemia, or like diabetes can cause this. So again, it's recognizing what's happening and then discussing, which solves most of the issues. So these are the sleep disorders you need to be aware of. Next slide, please. So now we've learned so much about sleep disorders. I mean, when I say so much, at least we have covered the tip of the iceberg. So why is sleep important? Because it's during sleep, as I mentioned, your brain engages in a lot of activities, like getting rid of toxic waste. And this sounds very simple, but what is the catastrophe the nation is facing right now, and we are all worried about it, is dementia. And we don't realize how important sleep is to prevent that. When somebody is diagnosed with dementia today, whatever process has happened for the past 20 years. So what you need to realize is when we don't sleep, and that kind of happens over months, weeks, months, and years, that starts accumulating like beta amyloid. That's kind of a toxic chemical that starts accumulating slowly. Of course, there are various other causes that start to accumulate, but sleep plays an important role because it's almost like, imagine living in a house where you don't clean your house every day. Imagine the amount of filth and dirt that gets accumulated. That leads to infections because that's kind of a zone where bacteria accumulate. So we clean it again because we physically see it. So during sleep, you get rid of toxic waste, and nerve cells, they communicate, they reorganize, they are settling themselves down because you're not actively physically doing something. It's where you're unconscious of your surroundings, so your brain is just focusing on restoring itself versus trying to use its soldiers to help you in some other way. And then it also restores its energy, regulates its hormones and all the proteins. That is the reason you grow. You grow during your sleep. Your muscles like develop during your sleep, especially for teenagers. And your brain is working to your body, entire body is working to kind of maintain your physical health as well. Next slide, please. And especially in teens and children and teens, that's what during sleep is where you're supporting the growth and development. Your growth is stunted cognitively, physically when you have lack of sleep. It also affects the way we react, the way we work, learn. Because if you see somebody hasn't slept well, you're more irritable, you're more cranky, and even you can't think effectively. In the past, during even in the medical field, in the past, we were made to work 36, 40 hours straight. That's when they realized that the thinking power of the physician is dropping at that end of 40 hours. That's when they started to cut back on the number of working hours so that we are more productive. That shows how much happens during your sleep. Next slide, please. So, and I'm repeating myself, but when you sleep, you enter the REM sleep during which your blood pressure and heart rate fall. And there, I don't want to go into this technical term, but it's called the parasympathetic system that controls your body's heart rate so that they don't have to work as hard. So that's where it's kind of containing all the energy and it makes you more active the next day when you wake up and it's able to like help you with your next day's function. And we also have noticed that the number of heart attacks. So that's why when we read so much in the newspaper, hey, that person is so active, so well achieved, they work out 3 hours a day and they eat healthy. Yes, but are they, nobody pays attention to, were they resting their body well? How much were they, like in the past few months, what was their routine like? I bet with their rigorous working hours, because most of these high achievers are jet setters. They travel all over the world. They go places. They function on 4 to 5 hours of sleep, and that catches up. As important as eating healthy and like your exercises, sleep is that piece of the puzzle that fits in for an overall health. Next slide, please. So I'm sure with all the slides we've gone through, you already can tell what are the risks of lack of sleep. That's when you don't sleep, you're at higher risk of heart attacks. And we know why. Because it's during your sleep that your heart rate slows down. If your heart rate is constantly beating at 100 to 110 when you're walking, moving, exercising, it almost, we don't realize how much stress you're putting on the heart. If you're making it, it's almost like, imagine, can you run a marathon every single waking day of your life? No, we will be fatigued out. That's the same thing. When we don't sleep, that's exactly what's happening to our brain. You're making it run a marathon every single day without getting the rest that it needs. So we are at a higher risk of a heart attack. We are at a higher risk of high blood pressure because if you remember, your hormones get regulated during sleep. And if you don't regulate your hormones, your blood pressure is on the higher side because it's not just your salt and what you eat. It's a lot of hormones in your body that regulate your blood pressure. And obesity, and why does lack of sleep lead to obesity? In a multiple ways. Mostly when we are awake, we are hungry, we tend to eat, like we tend to snack when we are awake. Then if the lack of sleep regulates this hormone, it decreases the hormone called leptin, and that is what controls our hunger. And when leptin keeps getting depleted in our body, we lose that control on hunger. And that's how it leads to obesity. And obesity leads to obstructive sleep apnea. Obstructive sleep apnea leads to high blood pressure uncontrolled, diabetes uncontrolled, leading to strokes and heart attacks. So now again, we've entered this vicious cycle. And of course, all of this leads to strokes. Next slide, please. So, as I just said, it leads to decreased ability to respond to insulin, and we are eating more, decreased physical activity because we are lethargic and fatigued. And all this encompasses something called a metabolic syndrome, which is nothing but a combination of diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure. So as we all learned, that leads to, so lack of sleep leads to being overweight and obesity. Next slide, please. And this is an important thing for teenagers. That's the formative years of their cognition, development. And I know for the most part, teenagers lately are loaded with a ton of stuff. But still, even though they sleep late, which we'll talk about in the next slide, because sleep helps with their learning and formation of long term memories, not getting sleep or high quality sleep, it kind of causes problems on focusing on a task or thinking clearly. Next slide. So, we all complain. I have a teenager, and even I've complained. Why do you sleep so late? Why are you so sleepy when you wake up early? That's because you're not sleeping on time. But with research, we've learned that adolescents, in their formative years, there's a biological shift in their internal check. What's happening is their melatonin levels, internally, the melatonin levels, it doesn't peak till 11 at night. So technically, they don't feel sleepy until that time. And but still, it's a human body. They need 8 to 10 hours of sleep. So they technically want to sleep till 7:30 or 8, but some of them can't because of school timings. And that's why there's a lot of discussion among school boards to start it later on in the day for teenagers. And I'm sure it'll get there because there's a lot of research in that aspect. So I know as much as we want our teen to sleep early, maybe with homework or maybe with activities, they can't. But still, having like a regular pattern, okay, get to bed by 10, 11 in the night, and at least try to get that 8 to 10 hours of sleep. And sometimes, yes, on the weekends, they do catch up with an extra hour or two, which is helpful. We don't want them to sleep in till noon because, again, you're messing up that circadian rhythm. So having that consistent sleep wake cycle really helps keep them healthy and focus and do what develop cognitively. Next slide, please. So these are the red flags that you have to pay attention to. Like sometimes we doze off involuntarily. I mean, or you can see a teenager doing that. yes, it could be just part of not sleeping well, or as I just referred to narcolepsy, is it that we need to recognize? Or having trouble with your memory and concentration. Hey, I can't focus. I'm just irritable. I can't get along with anyone. And snoring loudly, kicking your legs during sleep, suffering from depression. These are all the things, of course, could have a lot of it, like the etiologies or causes of it. But it could be as simple as not sleeping well. And that happens when you listen to your body's reactions and stimuli. Next slide, please. So, for the most part, what has helped, because with experience over a period of the past 16 years of practice, I've realized that most of my patients, I tell them there are three things for you to get better, like the medications I give, nutrition, and sleep. Only when those three things come together, I've seen that patients in the hospital or even outside, they really recover. That's why we say rest and recovery are part of just overall feeling better. So, if for the most part any of you are facing these sleep issues or all any like issues with falling asleep, try to follow this rule, the 10-3-2-1-0 sleep rule. 10 hours before bed, try to avoid caffeine. I know for the most part, all of us have caffeine in the evening and morning. I'm not saying everybody should stop having coffee or everybody should stop having tea in the evening. But if you are reacting to it negatively, pay attention, maybe eliminate that and see how your body reacts. If you're doing fine, like you take 2 cups of coffee and still fall asleep, please go for it. And 3 hours before bed, no more food or drink. This definitely goes a long way for a lot of things because your body takes 2 to 3 hours to digest solid food. And if you're sleeping right after, so you're pretty much sleeping with undigested food, and that leads to, again, obesity, lack of diabetic control, your sugars, like it kind of plays havoc with your system. 2 hours before work, I don't know how this can be possible, but then try to put some effort into it. Try to not focus so much on your work. If you're able to, try to cut down on the amount of work you're trying to do just about 2 hours before bed. If that works, may not, but at least give yourself 30 minutes to an hour. 1 hour before bed, this has definitely played a big role. No screen time. Read a book or relax or just stare off into the ceiling and that definitely helps because the light from the screens keep hitting like that enter the, if you remember, I said the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and that keeps triggering your brain that it's still daytime. That light keeps entering. And the snooze button in the morning, when you hear that alarm, wake up, because that's when your body starts regulating itself from there. Okay, now it's time for me to wake up. I need to stay awake. So all these little things matter to help with our good night's sleep. All right, so that was my last slide, but I'm open to questions, and I hope I was able to give you an insight into sleep and its issues with sleep.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amita, for enriching us with newfound knowledge. Me especially, I think I took the most out of the 10-3-2-1-0 sleep rule. I've seen that me and my friends, we tend to be on our phone, scrolling on TikTok, going on Instagram right before we fall asleep. And I've noticed if I stop doing that, I do have better quality sleep and I stay sleeping for a longer amount of time. And I've got to stop eating midnight snacks. Otherwise, I'm messing up my body. So
Definitely.
yeah, hopefully I think a lot of people learned so much from this presentation. So thank you so much again. And I don't know how that person did not sleep for 11 hours. Hats off for the Guinness World Record, but that's crazy.
11 days. 11
Oh,
days.
11 days. Yeah, that's insane.
I
Hopefully
know.
none of us try that.
I know. We don't want.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, now we'll be moving on to our Q&A segment. I have a couple of questions already written down from our attendees when they filled out the sign up form. So we'll go through those questions first, but if anybody else has any other questions, you can always come off of mute or write them down in the chat box and we'll go over them. So the first question was, I know you kind of already talked about this and mentioned this, but is there a specific time that's best to fall asleep for a teenager specifically?
I would recommend trying to sleep around 11 o'clock because that I felt like overall talking to a bunch of teenagers, like with their workload and everything, I've realized that I know it was unreasonable to ask them to get to bed by 9, 10 o'clock. But
Mhm.
I've seen that if they're able to kind of have a structure, have a schedule for what things they have to do. And what has helped most with my son is like, sometimes they feel overwhelmed with all the amount of work they have, but just putting it down on paper, just having it written down, what are the things to do and how can I best achieve it? That kind of opens their schedule up. Yes, I do have time. And that's when, like, at least getting to bed every day between around 11 or 11:30 at the most, and getting up by 7 o'clock, it at least helps you get that 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And then you can catch up on an extra hour or two during the week. And I've also noticed what has helped is like, he comes back from school and takes like that 30-minute nap. That also is really helping his body kind of like settle, help. I mean, they still are like tired, but at least it's help like in a way positively that they can get to start doing their work or like after that nap, they feel rejuvenated. And then once they focus and do complete their work by between 11 and 12, I think is a reasonable time for kids to fall asleep, teenagers.
Yeah, I think a lot of parents had mentioned some concerns that their teenagers have a lot of high workloads for school, so they're not getting enough sleep. So I guess kind of writing down and making a schedule would help with that. And so would catching up on sleep on the weekends, would that be helpful at all?
It is helpful, but what I've realized that like sometimes what the teenagers mind of catching up on sleep is, oh, I normally sleep at 11, 12. Now I'm sleeping at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning on Friday night, and I won't wake up till noon. I think that just messes up your circadian rhythm. So what
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend is, yeah, I mean, yeah, sleep by instead of 11, maybe sleep at 12, 1, but don't sleep until like noon. Try to wake up. If you're waking up every day at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, max try to get up by 9, 10 in the morning. So that way you're not throwing your sleep schedule off. Yes, it's okay to catch up a bit, on days, yes, even that's not possible with their activities, but an extra day, hour or two of sleep is not bad on the weekends.
Okay. And another person had mentioned and asked about the naps that you were talking about. So, are there any guidelines or rules to follow when you're taking a nap? Because I know sometimes when I do take a nap and I wake up, I feel more lethargic than feeling rejuvenated.
So if the nap goes to 1 to 2 hours, that happens. But 20 to 30 minutes is an ideal time for nap. So what we recommend is like, have an alarm set. So alarm set for 20 or 30 minutes. Just get just have same thing. Quiet surroundings, have your phone away and try to just sleep for 20 to 30 minutes, and that really rejuvenates you from and that even scientifically it's proven that the 20 to 30 minute of nap really gives your body that rest it needs from an entire day's work.
Mhm. And then someone else just asked in our chat box, is there anything to reduce headaches in the morning?
So headache is going to be a completely different topic, but I'll try to. So, we need to know what's causing the headache. Is it lack of sleep, or what kind of headache is it? Headache could be as simple as like just from lack of sleep. That's the simplest thing. But it can happen from your blood pressure not being controlled, or your diet having too much salt, or have, like, maybe vision, or maybe some, like, tension, anxiety, stress. There are lots of causes of headache. Or is it some a medication side effect? Is that happening? So I would definitely recommend, I mean, if this is just something new and only happened like just for the past couple days from lack of sleep, I understand. But if it's a consistent symptom, I would definitely recommend discussing with somebody as to the pattern of headache. When is it happening regularly? Do you have any like blurry vision with these headaches? Or do you have too much salt in your diet? Or in summers, especially, it's lack of water in your body. We don't realize how much, like, normally we need to drink like 8 glasses, even on a good day when it's 70, 80 degrees. With this 100-degree weather, we probably need like 11 to 12 glasses of water. And even something as simple as not drinking enough water leads to a headache. So I can talk with that person separately if there is something else going on, other than like if it's a simple headache versus something that needs to be evaluated further.
Okay, sounds great. I know whenever I complain that I'm having a headache, my parents, their first question is, did you have enough water today? Did you drink enough water? So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so it is. That's the most commonest, especially, and that has helped immensely with my children as well. Half the time, end of the day, they come back with a headache, and all they need to do is drink water, hydrate themselves well, eat some fruit or something that can provide a little extra cushion for the watermelon or like cucumbers or something like that. And that itself, because what we don't realize is when we don't drink enough water, the cell membranes are stretched out and parched. I mean, that's the stress inside at the microcellular level is what's causing the headache to happen.
Yeah. Another question that was asked are there some exercises to help you get better sleep?
Definitely, I'm sure yoga is such a big part of, like, lately it's picking up because it's relaxation. But no, it's not like a specific exercise. But what I've realized is any exercise, like running, jogging, anything, is basically building your core temperature. That's when, like, then your body's drive to kind of relax, it kickstarts that. So if you go for an evening run, come back, hydrate, and that's when your body's internal stimuli is like, okay, now I need to do something to cool the body off. And that's when your body's internal stimuli tells you to rest and relax and help you fall asleep, because your body is very smart. It knows what it needs. It's just that you need to give that time. So any form of exercise, as simple as gardening, go out and garden, like even that, it helps, like, your body's internal temperature rises, then it kickstarts that stimuli to let it cool off, and that will help you sleep better.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the days that I do go work out, I do get tired, obviously, from the exercise, but I tend to find myself sleeping earlier and for like longer time. It's a higher quality of sleep.
Correct, exactly. What we don't, like, there are little things. I mean, every time I try to go back generations, what our grandma or granddads have done, because this was never an issue. In the, I mean, yeah, I'm sure they also had sleeplessness or something, but for the most part, they didn't, because knowingly or unknowingly, they followed a schedule. They just, yeah, waking up at a certain time, keep doing physical activity through the day, eating, resting, and at night, of course, no screens. And that's when they fell asleep, because they had that extra moment to pay attention to, yes, my body is tired, now I'm sleeping. So now we are bombarded with so many external stimuli and disturbances and things that we think we have to do. We forget that our body still needs what it needs. We just think that I can get away. Sleep is the easiest thing we compromise on, not realizing how much it impacts us now, tomorrow, and long term.
Yeah, I feel like with all the new technologies and all of our new abilities that we need to do, we compromise sleep, and I feel like it just kind of we create new problems for ourselves, and all we needed to do was sleep.
Exactly. Our body, 10,000, no matter how much AI or technology, everything is going to come in. That's going to help us with living a comfortable life. But the body is not going to change. Body's needs 10,000 or a million years from now are going to stay the same.
Yeah.
How we adapt to this changing world with keeping the needs of our body in perspective, and I mean, that should be of utmost importance. Is like nutrition, rest are important. How you utilize your technology is in your hands. Okay, make your things easy by using technology, but your body still needs that rest. Get that rest.
Yeah, exactly. Another question that was asked was after falling asleep, um, what can you do to stay asleep for continuous amounts of sleep? Because I've in the questions that I've been asked, it's like they're able to fall asleep, but they can't stay asleep. They keep waking up.
Right. And that's definitely, so here again, it's a tricky question because, okay, now you're waking up. You're probably waking up during your REM part of the sleep. So once you wake up, what are you doing to keep yourself like calm? Sometimes I know there's so many thoughts racing our mind. Are you trying to deflect those thoughts? Or when you wake up, even I've done that. Sometimes I wake up at 2, 3 a.m. and I think that browsing my phone will make me fall asleep. But technically, I'm telling my brain, I'm sending light into my brain and keeping it awake. So, what I have realized for myself is whenever I wake up at like 1, 2 o'clock, do nothing. Just stay in bed, close your eyes, and trust me. And I mean, of course, it's not going to happen every time, but if you try to focus on just some one thing that's less stressful, or maybe for some people it's shop, like, okay, there's a thing that you want to focus on, something that causes less stress. Try to just keep thinking about that and close your eyes. In about 30 to 45 minutes, for the most part, you will fall asleep. And sometimes, yeah, there was a week where I would wake up at 2, 3 o'clock and I'm like, okay, browsing my phone didn't help. But it took me another 3 or 4 days to start falling asleep again once I wake up. But for those 3 or 4 days that you don't, you have to resist the urge of stressing yourself, of trying to get up and look at your phone, and like pay attention to those little things that you're doing. If you avoid those distractions, for the most part, you will fall asleep. And if you didn't, then again, it comes down to medically is something happening. Yes, I'm not looking at my phone. I'm trying to close my eyes and not think about anything. I've done all of that. Still, it's not helping me. That's the time you want to see your physician to discuss, because your body's tendency in when there's no absolute light and your relaxed state is to fall asleep. And if you aren't falling asleep even after 3 or 4 days, then there's something going on. And not I'm not saying medications are an answer to everything, but I just want to make sure there's nothing else going on that's leading to this lack of sleep. And maybe correcting that problem can help this problem.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like people just need to ask more questions, and as you said, medication isn't always the answer.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. I just got another question. This person asked, If I sleep around 10 p.m. and try to wake up at 8 a.m., I feel sleepy. So should I continue sleeping or wake up?
Definitely don't hit that snooze button. So if you, I mean, that's a good 10 hours of sleep, which is great. Yeah. But when you wake up, what do you do? Like, do you try to stay in bed or get up and try to do some form? Maybe your body needs a little bit of workout to kind of kickstart the metabolism. So maybe try doing that. And do you like hydrate yourself when you wake up? I've seen that when you get up and you feel lethargic, drinking some warm water, going for a nice walk definitely stimulates your body. And if, especially sunlight, we undermine sunlight too. Just going out in the sun, that kind of hits your suprachiasmatic nucleus and creates that wakefulness in the body.
Okay, hopefully that helped that person. But if you have any other questions, please
Email. Yeah.
ask me. Yep. And I think those were all the questions that I had so far. I can ask one more time if anybody has any other questions last minute. You can always email Dr. Amita Auntie, and then also if you want to type them in the chat right now, that'd be great. Well, if there are no other questions, I just want to say thank you again for joining us today and engaging in this insightful discussion. A special thanks to Dr. Amita Garu for sharing her expertise and experiences with us. Oh, we just got one more quick question. This person asked, what will help reduce snoring?
Like I just said, like, snoring, what it's a part, I mean, is it just part of your sleep apnea? You need to be, anytime we hear snoring as a complaint from our patients, we always evaluate them for something called obstructive sleep apnea. And especially if you've been snoring and daytime it's causing a lot of fatigue and just tired all the time, then you always have to be evaluated for sleep apnea, which then the doctor will talk about the treatments of sleep apnea. And sleep apnea is fairly common than we like think it is. So get yourself checked out for sleep apnea by a physician. And if that is not the case, then they can think of, if just plain snoring without sleep apnea, it's annoying to the person sleeping next to you, but it's not a problem otherwise.
Hopefully that was helpful. But we're going to wrap up the session now. And thank you again, everyone, for joining. And thank you, Amita Garu. And wishing everyone a better sleep practices, and living a better life with much more sleep. And I hope everyone enjoyed our wonderful webinar today. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, thank you so much, Amita Garu and Shreya, for conducting and taking this wonderful, important topic.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. I enjoyed it. Thank you.